journey into sound.
Now, here comes the music.
We are embarking on quite the journey to tell the truth about America's creative culture.
We have partnered with our friends at 45. This is going to be a life-changing moment.
Little girl, don't you rise. Little boy, don't you fall. I've got a story to tell, and it's about what my call. What my call was telling them lies about yesterday. Woo,
We were in Nashville and visited the National Museum of African American Music. The artists that were creating music that was called rhythm and blues couldn't really get far on like mainstream airways or on the radio, and so they actually changed the name of their music to rock and roll. And because some artists didn't get to get their words out, I'm gonna do it for them.
You know, we're understanding just the powerful nature of what is America's genre of music that was created and birthed by Black people, by the blues, by slavery. It comes from a space of emotion, and it means a lot, and we don't know it's ours.
Off the top of your head, as of now, maybe you've thought about it, what would economic justice be like for rock and roll?
We could have an all-black rock music festival.
That would be an amazing idea.
We could have an advocacy campaign.
We could do a documentary about learning about rock and roll music.
We could put our entire 10-person team on it and be like, we gotta learn about this thing and then talk about it and tell everybody else. We can tell all our funders. We can get Indianapolis jazzed about it. We could try to get sponsors around the whole thing. We could try to have listening sessions.
That have
concerts and
concerts.
Interviews.
Talks.
And we can basically ask anybody we know about it and make it a relevant, it already is a relevant topic, but we can bring it to the forefront.
Yeah, it's a cool piece of information that the world needs to know.
What's that pink Post-it note saying?
Yeah.
I Made Rock and Roll is a fly-ass concert with dope marketing campaign about black rock and roll.
So time was definitely a constraint. It wasn't a real obstacle when there's so much passion and push, right? But I would say one of the biggest things just in a first-year festival is that it's its first year. You're not only selling people on a lineup, on an artist, but you're trying to substantiate the idea of this concept, right? Ours has this big narrative in front of it that to us is almost as much of a selling point as the lineup itself.
Don't let the devil ride. The genres are complicated because these are industry labels applied to a particular art form. Now, genres are interesting in the fact that they let some people in and exclude others. If you let them ride, which is what happened to the idea of rock and roll. By the time you evolve to the late 50s, mid to late 50s, rock and roll becomes something, and actually, rock and roll is really a repackaged rhythm and blues. Little Richard says rock and roll is rhythm and blues up-tempo. If he be your boss, you sure gonna play the calls, don't let him ride. That's all I got for y'all.
I chose to do a film about Little Richard because it hadn't been made. And I think the call for us as artists is to stand in the gap.
I am the king of rock and roll!
I mean, he really is the kerosene that lights the inferno. And it's an inferno of music and rhythm and style that travels around the globe. I mean, Tutti Frutti has been covered in 25 different languages, which is actually, it's a fun thing to do, is to look up, Tutti Frutti in Greek. Tutti Frutti in Polish. Tutti Frutti in Spanish. I mean, what artist has done that without a blueprint in the way that Richard did?
This is an African-derived concept. Before we were brought involuntarily to this country from the African continent through the Middle Passage, Black folk did not distinguish between the sacred and the secular. They came up with this artistic religious music called the Negro spiritual. You know, they had messages in these songs. Follow the drinking gourd to the north. Look at the drinking gourd, we're gonna escape. When we're going, soon and very soon, you know, soon I will be done with the troubles of this world. So they had these messaging and they had this spiritual content. In that Negro spiritual is the DNA for rock.
I remember the day that they played a video of Sister Rosetta Tharpe doing Up Above My Head, and I was just absolutely blown away. It was the first time I had seen her. It was this black and white film. She's got this choir behind her, and then she just busts out this guitar solo.
She pretty much invented the guitar solo, you know what I mean? And that's straight out of the church, but she invented the rock guitar solo as it is, you know what I'm saying? People are still lifting stuff from her to this day, and her energy is absolutely what's kickstarted rock and roll.
For so long, I had felt like I was this outsider and I was doing something that was so weird and odd, and I didn't know any other people like me who were black and into rock music. And here was this woman, you know, at least 2 generations above me who was already doing this, already rocking out, already playing electric guitar.
And it was so exciting to learn that back in the heyday of Indiana Avenue, that Sister Rosetta Tharpe performed here in Indy. Like, we know everybody came through, but it's especially amazing to know that a little bit of her DNA is floating around us here in Indy.
Rock is now a global phenomenon. Everybody plays rock. Man, I was listening to some rock the other day, Chinese rock. Rock is all over the place.
They sought to push the envelope, you know, step out the box, you know, and for me, that's always been the biggest thing. Even when I found out about Jimmy, you know, he wasn't scared to take the blues and take it to a whole nother, you know, atmosphere and whatnot, so.
Yeah, rock is pretty amorphous. That's another thing I like about it. I mean, all music's kind of amorphous, but you can get away with a lot of things in rock music. Same with hip hop. I feel like hip hop's the same way.
I think it's all about representation. You know, representation matters. Like I said, we know we can rap. We know we can sing with all the falsetto and runs and everything. But you know, we need to see somebody in this, vein as well. We got all the OGs and all the footage, but we need to see somebody of the now doing it. So we need artists like, you know, Lenny Kravitz and Judith Hill and you know, and the, you know, list goes on. Hopefully, you know, I'm added to that list, you know, with Gary Clark Jr. and stuff like that. So
I've been grappling with I Made Rock and Roll. I Made Rock and Roll, that concert, the I. When we all come to that concert, we should reflect on the I. You should ask yourself, who is the I? The I is not an individual reality. The I is a communal reality. Is the community of black folk from the continent of Africa. They are the I that made rock and roll. They carried with them the DNA for rock and roll, the call and response, the hand clapping, the foot stomping, the hollering, the shouting, the runs, or what we call in academia, the melismas. That's what you hear in rock. The DNA of the I, the community. That's what you're gonna hear at I Made Rock Festival.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It's festival week. This is prep week with Chaos.
We are pushing to sell tickets, building out the American Legion Mall.
We are only 50% of the strategy, but it feels like 100% of the responsibility.
It just feels like it's just game time, you know, what it feels like. We really rarely get to enjoy any of these, things.
Absolutely, I'm almost positive there will be lots of last minute chaos and things popping up, but that's just part of what keeps it exciting and part of what I enjoy about working here with Gang Gang.
And if you don't like it, that's fair, but we're here. stay here. We ain't going nowhere. 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 No, 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 no. We ain't never going nowhere.
Rock and roll isn't just one thing. I think the lineup that we've put together displays that, like tells that story in itself. But I think when you experience it, the music shapes and shifts throughout the genre. Like to me, it's the story of also how rock and roll has evolved. To me, that is just as important as who was on the stage on May 18th.
And we're here, gonna stay here. And if you don't like it, that's fair. But we're here, gonna stay here. We ain't going nowhere. 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 No, 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 no. We ain't never going nowhere.
I want to thank Gang Gang 45 for having us all here tonight. It is an honor to be playing on stage with some of the most incredible artists. Give it up for everybody that came on this stage. Creating music, creating art, performing, it is not easy. Making things is hard. I stand with you all. We're fighting for our rights because you see humanity. You see the power of love. You see the power of community. You see what peace can do. And I just want you to know I love you and I feel you.
So the next time you crank up that guitar, you feel the pulse of that bass, let the drums take you to another realm, remember this. We are the revolution. We will be heard, we will be felt, and we will be celebrated now.